I used to believe all cheese was bad for my blood sugar. Too salty, too fatty, and definitely off limits for someone trying to keep their numbers in check. But guess what? The cheese that ended up helping me the most was the one I had been avoiding for years. Life is a funny way of teaching us through small surprises, and this one came straight from my fridge. I remember the first time I swapped out my usual snack for a spoonful of cottage cheese. I was expecting a spike, but instead I felt steady, clear-headed, even satisfied. No crash, no regrets. That's when I started digging a little deeper. Turns out, not all cheeses are created equal. Some can be part of a healthy, low-sugar routine, while others quietly make things worse. If you're over 60 like me, and watching both your sugar and your pressure, this might be more important than ever. So today, I'm sharing the 5 cheeses I eat without guilt, ones that help me stay on track without giving up flavor. And if you stay with me till the end, I'll also tell you the 2 types of cheese I avoid completely, even though they look innocent on the plate. If this sounds helpful, give the video a like and hit subscribe. There's more where this came from. Number 5, cottage cheese. The first time I gave cottage cheese a real chance, I was standing in my kitchen one quiet morning, staring at the fridge with that, what can I eat that won't spike me? Look, I've been up since 5:30, knees aching, head a bit foggy. I remember my old neighbor, Mrs. Daniels, used to eat cottage cheese with sliced tomatoes every single morning, rain or shine. Back then, I thought she was strange. But that morning, I grabbed a spoon and tried it cold, right out of the container. It was creamy, salty, not too heavy, and I waited. No spike, no crash, just steady energy till lunch. I sat there smiling like I'd found a hidden key. Turns out, cottage cheese is rich in protein but low in carbs, and that's exactly what our blood sugar needs after 60. I don't need anything fancy, just something that doesn't push my numbers through the roof. I started having it 4 times a week, sometimes with a few cucumber slices, other times with a sprinkle of cinnamon and a couple walnut halves. And the best part? I don't feel that shaky hunger mid-morning anymore. It gives me that just enough feeling without weighing me down. It's like finding the right pillow. You don't know how much you needed it until you stop waking up sore. One thing I wish I'd known earlier was to buy the low-sodium version. Some brands sneak in more salt than we need, especially if you've got high blood pressure along with diabetes, which, let's be honest, most of us do. Now, I checked the label, picked a plain one with lower salt, and it does the trick. If you're watching both sugar and pressure like me, this is one of those rare foods that helps with both. No wonder more doctors are recommending it these days, not in pills or charts, but in those quiet nods like, this wouldn't hurt to try. I even got my grandson to taste it the other day. He wrinkled his nose like I used to, but then he added some blueberries and a drizzle of cinnamon. Tastes like cheesecake, he said. I laughed, but he wasn't wrong. Cottage cheese can be sweet or savory, depending on what you mix it with. And when I'm too tired to cook, I'll grab a bowl of it with some chopped apples and almonds and call it dinner. Not because I'm being strict, but because it honestly makes me feel lighter and more stable afterward. So many years I wasted avoiding things I thought were bad without ever understanding why. I thank God I gave this humble cheese another shot. It's not glamorous. It won't win any cooking show awards, but it's helped me keep my sugar steady without sacrificing comfort. That's something I never thought I'd say about a food I once judged so harshly. Funny how small changes like this can make our mornings feel calmer and our afternoons a little clearer. Number 4, mozzarella. If cottage cheese is the quiet helper, mozzarella is the smooth talker who gets along with everybody. I remember slicing into a ball of fresh mozzarella one summer evening, right after picking tomatoes from the garden. It was still warm outside, and I laid everything out on a wooden board: mozzarella, tomato, a drizzle of olive oil, and a pinch of salt. Took a bite, and I swear it was like I'd traveled to Italy without leaving Tennessee. But what really surprised me, I didn't feel sluggish after eating. My sugar stayed steady. I felt light, satisfied, and somehow cared for. Mozzarella's magic is in its balance. It's got enough protein to slow digestion, but not too much fat or salt to throw things off. And if you go with the fresh kind, the one packed in water or brine, it's even better for folks like us watching sugar and pressure. I started keeping a small ball in the fridge each week, slicing it up when I need something filling but gentle. No crusty bread needed, no pasta pile, just mozzarella and something fresh beside it. It's a good reminder that simple can be powerful, especially after 60 when our bodies are asking for peace, not stress. One thing I noticed is how well it plays with other good foods. You put a slice on top of a cucumber or roll it up with a basil leaf, and suddenly you've got a snack that feels like a treat but behaves like medicine. My wife started adding it to our salads instead of croutons, and I've got to say, I don't miss the crunch. I'd rather have the creamy satisfaction that doesn't come with a sugar spike. Sometimes, I even grill a slice on top of zucchini rounds and pretend it's mini pizza. Makes me feel like I'm eating something fun without paying the price later. My doctor once told me, think of food as tools, not enemies. And mozzarella is one tool I reach for when I want to feel normal, not restricted. It's comfort without chaos. And it doesn't make me crash or crave something sweet right after. Even my friends at church potlucks started bringing Capri salads, and I suspect it's not just for the looks. It's because it actually helps them feel better, too. Funny how the food that used to be called cheat food can turn out to be healing when you understand it right. So many things in life feel like either or, tasty or healthy, filling or light, joyful or disciplined. But mozzarella proves you can have both. It lets me enjoy my plate without regret or guilt. And every time I slice into it, I feel a little more in control, not just of my sugar, but of my peace. It's one of those foods I thank the Lord for putting in my path again, this time with older, wiser eyes. Number 3, goat cheese. There's something about goat cheese that feels a little fancy, but also oddly familiar. The first time I had it again was at my niece's house up in North Carolina. She served it crumbled over roasted beets with a bit of thyme and olive oil. I hesitated, looked too soft, too tangy, but I gave it a try. To my surprise, it was creamy and bright without being heavy. And the best part came later that evening. I didn't feel that bloated, sluggish feeling I sometimes get with richer cheeses. My sugar stayed even, and my stomach was calm as could be. Goat cheese digests differently than cow's milk cheeses. That's something I didn't know until I started reading more about it. It's got shorter chain fatty acids, which break down quicker and seem to sit better in the belly, especially mine. I don't need a whole lot of it, just a sprinkle on a salad, or a spread on a slice of low-carb toast in the afternoon. It gives me just enough richness to feel satisfied, but not weighed down. I also notice I don't get that weird brain fog afterward, which I used to think was just age, but maybe it was the food all along. Another thing I like is how versatile it is. You can go sweet or savory. One morning, I mixed a spoonful of goat cheese with cinnamon and a few raspberries. Tasted like a dessert, but didn't mess with my numbers at all. Another day, I crumbled it over grilled squash with black pepper, and it felt like something out of a fancy restaurant. I like that I can feel a little special without needing anything expensive or complicated. Just a small tub in the fridge, and I'm good for the week. There's a humble strength to this cheese. It doesn't shout like cheddar or stretch like mozzarella, but it's got a quiet character that works for those of us trying to eat smarter after 60. My neighbor, who also watches his sugar, told me it helped with his inflammation too. Maybe it's the anti-inflammatory properties, or maybe it's just that it replaces some of the heavier stuff. Either way, he and I both agree, it's worth keeping around. We call it our wise cheese. Looking back, I wish I hadn't waited so long to try it again. I used to skip past it at the store, thinking it was for folks with more refined taste. But now I see it as a gift, something gentle on the stomach, kind of the blood sugar, and rich enough to make me feel like I'm not missing out. It's funny how aging opens your mind to simple treasures. Goat cheese is one of mine. Number 2, ricotta. The smell of warm ricotta reminds me of Sunday mornings when my wife used to make pancakes with a spoonful mixed into the batter. I never knew why they were softer than usual. Turns out it was a ricotta doing its quiet work. These days, I eat it a little differently. A scoop with fresh strawberries or a dollop on a piece of Ezekiel toast makes for a breakfast that doesn't send my sugar spinning. It's light, mellow, and plays well with just about anything that grows from the ground. That soft texture. It's like eating a cloud that actually keeps you full. Ricotta has a slow-digesting protein called casein. I didn't know what that was at first, but I sure knew how it made me feel. Calmer blood sugar, number 10 a.m. crash, and a nice steady energy that lasts until lunch. It's also lower in salt than most cheeses, which makes it doubly useful for folks like me who have to keep an eye on blood pressure too. It's one of those foods that doesn't make a big fuss, but does a lot of good behind the scenes. And it doesn't take much, just a scoop or two here and there, and I feel like I'm doing right by my body. I like using it in place of cream cheese. I'll mash it with a few herbs, maybe a touch of lemon, and spread it on celery or a slice of bell pepper. Makes for a crunchy snack that feels like a treat. Sometimes I mix it with cinnamon and chopped almonds and call it dessert. It gives me that satisfied feeling after a meal without the sugar roller coaster that used to knock me out by mid-afternoon. It's also gentle on my digestion, which at my age is a bigger blessing than most folks talk about. Feeling comfortable after a meal is underrated. I read somewhere that in Italy, ricotta is considered a second cheese, made from the way that's left behind after other cheeses are finished. That made me think, sometimes the leftovers, the quieter choices, end up being the most nourishing. Ricotta may not get the attention cheddar or Parmesan gets, but it's earned a permanent spot in my fridge. And when paired with something fibrous, like chia pudding or a few berries, it turns into one of the most blood sugar-friendly meals I know. No crash, no cravings, just calm. Looking back, I'm glad I didn't write off ricotta just because it seemed plain. Some of the best things for our bodies come in quiet packages. It's soft, gentle, and easy on sugar, pressure, and digestion. All the things we got to care for after 60. And when I find something that makes me feel that good, I hold on to it. But it's not the only one. There's another cheese I started leaning on lately. Mild in taste, strong in benefits, and it's one I never expected to become a weekly staple. Let me tell you about it next. Number 1, Swiss cheese. When I was a kid, I used to think Swiss cheese was just the one with holes in it. It showed up on sandwiches, melted funny, and tasted kind of nutty, but I never gave it much thought. Years later, after I started paying closer attention to my blood sugar, I stumbled across it again, and this time I saw it with new eyes. One slice, low sodium, barely any carbs, and full of flavor. I made a simple snack with a slice of turkey, some Swiss, and a pickle, and waited. No spike, no fog, just a steady afternoon. What makes Swiss cheese stand out is how naturally low it is in salt compared to other cheeses. That surprised me. I always thought mild flavor meant less nutrition, but Swiss proved me wrong. It's got protein, calcium, and barely any lactose, so it's gentle on digestion, too. That's a big win for folks like us trying to manage multiple things at once. Blood sugar, blood pressure, and that good old-fashioned belly comfort. I started keeping a pack in the fridge for quick snacks, and honestly, it keeps me from reaching for anything processed. I also found it melts beautifully on veggies. A few slices on roasted zucchini or even over scrambled eggs, and you've got yourself a warm, filling plate without the sugar spike or the salt overload. My wife started using it in place of cheddar in our casseroles, and I swear it made the whole thing taste cleaner, less greasy, more balanced. I think the Lord sometimes puts better choices right in front of us. We just don't see them until we slow down and look again. There's also something comforting about the texture. Soft but not mushy. Solid but not stiff. Kind of like us, if we're being honest. Holding it together, still flexible and full of character. It reminds me that growing older doesn't mean giving things up. It means learning what truly serves us. Swiss cheese found its way back into my kitchen not as a guilty pleasure, but as a quiet helper that fits into my new rhythm. With all these real cheeses, cottage, mozzarella, goat, ricotta, and now Swiss, I've learned to eat with purpose and pleasure. But not all cheeses earn a place on that list. Some still come with warnings. And the next one I'll mention is one I enjoy only in very small amounts, because it can cross the line quickly if I'm not careful. Let's talk about Parmesan next. The smell of Parmesan takes me straight back to spaghetti nights when the kids were still home. We'd pass the green shaker bottle around the table, piling it on like it was snow. Back then, I didn't think twice about it. But after 60, when blood pressure joined the list of things I had to keep an eye on, Parmesan started acting up, I noticed that even small amounts made me retain water, and my ankles would puff up by the evening. At first, I blamed the pasta, but the cheese was doing its part too. Parmesan is rich in protein and calcium, and yes, it has a strong flavor that lets you use less. But it's also packed with sodium, more than most folks realize. A single tablespoon can carry over 450 milligrams of salt. If you're not careful, a simple sprinkle turns into a pressure-raising sneak attack. That's why I stopped using it like a topping and started treating it more like a seasoning. Just a pinch, maybe on roasted broccoli or a bowl of cauliflower rice. It gives me that savory kick without inviting trouble. One thing I will say, it lasts a long time. A small wedge goes further than you'd think, and the real, aged kind has fewer additives than those powdered tubs we grew up with. If I'm going to have Parmesan, it's the fresh stuff, grated right before eating. No fillers, no anti-caking agents. Just the real deal. It's stronger in flavor and, somehow, gentler on my system. Maybe it's the way my body recognizes real food over the fake stuff we see too often these days. Still, I treat it with respect. It's not a daily cheese for me anymore. More like a special occasion flavor enhancer, like pepper or lemon zest. Too much and it pushes me over the edge. But just a little, when I'm craving that classic flavor, keeps me satisfied without wrecking the rest of my day. That's something I had to learn the hard way. Balance, not restriction. That's what sticks. Now, I've shared 6 cheeses I've grown to trust, some more than others. But not all cheese deserves a seat at the table. In fact, there are 2 types I avoid entirely now, no matter how convenient or tasty they seem. They may look innocent, but what they do to my body isn't worth the risk. Let me show you the 2 that never make it into my cart anymore. Number 2, Feta Halumi and processed cheeses, very high in sodium. There was a time I thought feta was one of the healthier cheeses. It's crumbly, it's white, and it shows up in all those fancy salads you see on cooking shows. So I started adding it here and there on greens and omelets, even on top of grilled veggies. But after a few weeks, something strange kept happening. My ankles would swell up by late afternoon, and I'd feel this tightness in my chest after dinner. Thought it was just age. Then I checked my blood pressure. It had crept up again. Turns out feta and halloumi, too, are loaded with salt. Way more than I realized. Just a little handful can pack in over 300 milligrams of sodium, sometimes closer to 500 depending on the brand. And if you're already on the edge with your pressure like I was, that much sodium is like pouring gasoline on a fire. I started keeping a little notebook of how certain foods made me feel. And these cheeses kept landing on the not worth it list. They didn't spike my sugar, but they stir up other problems I couldn't afford to ignore. Halloumi was even trickier. Folks grill it and it smells amazing, like a cookout in the backyard. I remember one church picnic where someone brought grilled halloumi sliders, and I went back for seconds. The next day I felt puffy, headachy, and plain off. My doctor later told me it's one of the saltiest cheeses out there. Tastes good, sure, but so does bacon, and I learned to let that go, too. Not everything that tastes good today is kind to you tomorrow. What frustrates me is how these cheeses look so innocent. White, crumbly, neat little cubes, but they carry a heavy load inside. For those of us walking the fine line between diabetes and heart issues, it's not just about sugar. It's about what keeps our pressure steady, our joints from swelling, and our heads from pounding. I'd rather enjoy a milder cheese more often than risk my week over a salty bite I can't take back. Took me a while to admit it, but now I know better. So I leave feta and halloumi for special occasions, if at all, and even then just a taste. Because I've come to value how I feel over how something tastes for 5 seconds. God gave us bodies that whisper when something's off. We just have to listen. And when it comes to cheese, too much salt can drown out the piece we're trying to build. The next one I'm about to tell you about is even worse. Sneakier, processed, and full of stuff that shouldn't even be called food. Number 1, processed cheeses, slices, spreads, melted types. When I was younger, a grilled cheese sandwich meant 2 slices of white bread and that shiny orange square from a plastic wrapper. It melted like magic and tasted like childhood. But as I got older and wiser, I started noticing what those slices did to my body. After a sandwich like that, I'd feel bloated, thirsty, and strangely tired. At first, I blamed the bread, but then I looked closer at the cheese itself. And let me tell you, it barely counts as cheese at all. Most of those processed cheese products, spreads, slices, and the ones that melt too perfectly, are packed with more than just fat and salt. They got added sugars, starches, artificial colors, and something called modified food starch that sounds more like lab work than lunch. For someone with diabetes, that combo is a recipe for confusion. It's not just a sugar spike. It's the inflammation, the fog, the way my body feels like it's dragging itself through the afternoon. One time, I grabbed a cheese spread at the store because it was on sale and said made with real cheese. Seemed safe enough. But after 2 days of using it on my celery sticks, my joints were stiffer, my stomach was louder, and my sugar numbers started creeping up again. That label tricked me good. Now I know to flip the package and look for words like hydrogenated, emulsifier, and preservative. If it's a longer ingredient list than a church bulletin, I leave it behind. What breaks my heart is how easy it is to fall for these products. They're convenient, they're cheap, and they look like comfort. But I've learned the hard way that just because something is familiar doesn't mean it's safe. At our age, everybody either helps us or holds us back. And when I stopped buying those shiny slices in weird tubs, my digestion got better, my energy came back, and my doctor even commented on how stable my sugar had been that month. So now I stick with real cheese, the kind that spoils if you forget in the fridge, the kind with texture, flavor, and ingredients you can pronounce. I thank the Lord for teaching me how to read labels and listen to my body before things got worse. We may not control everything with age, but we can choose what we put on our plate. And that choice, day after day, becomes a quiet kind of power. I used to think managing blood sugar meant cutting out everything I enjoyed. No bread, no pasta, no cheese, just bland food and finger pricks. But over time, I realize it's not always about removing joy. It's about replacing the things that don't serve you with ones that do. Cheese, when chosen wisely, can be part of steady, satisfying life after 60. And once I stopped fearing it and started understanding it, my meals got better. And so did I. Each cheese I shared today came into my life not through some fancy nutritionist, but through trial, error, and a lot of paying attention. I noticed how my body felt. I listened. I prayed for guidance. And slowly, I built a plate that makes sense for me. There's no one-size-fits-all. But I do believe God gave us the ability to sense what brings us peace and what brings us problems. For me, the cheeses I enjoy now offer both comfort and control without sacrificing one for the other. Of course, we've also got to be honest about the sneaky ones. Feta, halloumi, and especially those processed slices and tubs. They may look harmless, but they carry too much baggage. High sodium, hidden sugars, fake ingredients. They're like wolves in cheese's clothing. And when you're managing both diabetes and blood pressure, it's not worth the risk. I've learned to walk past them at the store and thank the Lord for the real food that still loves me back. Now, if you're thinking of changing your own habits, remember this. Small steps matter. Swapping one cheese for another might seem tiny, but those changes add up. Still, before making any big changes to your diet, talk to a doctor or a specialist who knows your history. What works for me might need adjusting for you. But trust your gut, literally. When something makes you feel clearer, steadier, stronger, lean into it. We may not be able to turn back the clock, but we can sure slow it down with the right choices. So next time you're at the fridge, remember, a little wisdom goes a long way, even in cheese. Take care of yourselves, be gentle with your plate, and thank God for every bite that helps you feel whole. God bless y'all.